I'm told the number one fear people have is speaking in public. It's the one fear I don't have. Join me for the Love Speaks series, where we leave fear behind and we speak love. Loving our story, loving speaking, doing what we love, loving each other, and loving ourselves. Our stories are what connect us and make us better humans. So join me and my Love Speaks friends for some stories, some laughs, some inspiration, some speaker tips, and some unexpected truth. It's the Love Speaks series, where a little bit of love goes a long way.
Welcome to the Love Speaks series. Here's your host, Sally Lou Loveman.
I am so excited to be back in the studio today with a former colleague, friend of mine from the Oprah Winfrey Show. So we're feeling all kinds of producer feelings here today with my friend Jill Frank.
Hello.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Sally Lou.
I'm so excited to see you. This is, you all know how it is when you see someone live in person. Like, it's pretty awesome.
What a gift.
We're 6 feet away, maybe 7. So let me give you a little background on Jill. Now we're going to chat. I write about Jill in my book, Speak, because she is so passionate about her craft. And she uses her talent as a producer and a brand person to benefit others. She was a promos producer at the Oprah Winfrey Show, which is where we met. And today, ready? I mean, I feel like, Jeremy, do we have a drum roll we could add later? I feel like this needs a drum roll. And when she posted it on Instagram, I was like, holy fucking shit! Head of Creative Agency Operations at Allstate. Okay? That is a kick-ass title. Okay? I got the chills. I gave myself the chills. And trust me, Allstate is in good hands with Jill. Couldn't resist.
And I in good hands with Allstate as well.
I know you are. We love Allstate. But the reason, besides the fact that I love Jill and write about her and include her in all things women supporting women that I do, and she supported me at Harpo with her smile every day. But I really wanted to talk today about a conversation / speech that she gave or moderated for the 3% conference. And we're going to talk about what that 3% conference is. I'll let Jill explain it. But I invited Jill today because of her wisdom, obviously, and how she is changing the face of creative directors as a woman of color and what we as women of all races can do to move that needle. So here we are at Mystery Street Recording Studio. I welcome my friend, Jill Frank, with her megawatt smile, and tell us exactly what is gendered racism and how can we get rid of it?
I love that. Well, first of all, Sally Lou, thank you for having me on this show. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
This is a little different than our usual like coffee chat or we'll grab dinner or lunch, probably about quarterly. So it's just beautiful to see your face.
And we missed our quarter because of stupid COVID.
We did.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see your face. Really glad.
Absolutely. So, gendered racism is a term that I heard in a psychology class that I took a couple of years ago.
Of course, you're in school too. Like, what don't you do? And she's a mother of 2. Okay, whatever.
So it was a baby psychology class, like a 101 as a potential prereq for a future something that I might dip my toe into.
I love it.
But the concept hit me like a ton of bricks. When you hear something that just feels like, oh, it's the aha moment that we know and love from the Oprah days.
Right.
So gendered racism is a term to describe something that women of color experience that is unique. It's a unique stressor that comes with the added third thing of having both sexism and racism encountered at the same time. Right. And so we know as women that we deal with sexism. Every woman who's listening to The Voice right now will know sexism is a thing that exists.
Right.
And if you're a person of color, you know what racism is. And certainly in today's climate, everyone knows what racism is and is talking about it actively, which is a wonderful thing despite all of the horrible things that are going on. The gift in the wound. The gift in the wound. It's so true. Gendered racism is this wholly separate third thing, which is uniquely felt when those two worlds intersect, right? And so a good example is, of male gendered racism is, no one is crossing the street when they see me for fear that I'm going to take their purse, right? That's a unique stressor to Black males.
Right.
Whereas I think with Black females, it manifests in different ways, oftentimes more subtle. Not to say that women of color and Black women are not the victims of violence and police brutality. We know that very intimately. Breonna Taylor, say her name. But, it sometimes becomes more subtle, right? There's a story about a very prominent Black woman, being asked what was on the lunch menu for the conference that she was the keynote speaker of, right? Because someone assumed that she was the help.
Right.
And, so it's interesting, and in the talk that I just gave at the 3% conference, I was kind of going through the stats and the numbers.
Yes, I want to talk about those because those were daunting. I wrote them down.
Out of the Fortune 500, you've got 38 now female CEOs. We've added
37.
One. It was 37 at the time of recording. We've added one.
Okay.
So 38 females. I believe it was 4 Black CEOs.
People. Not women. Zero. Right.
Zero Black females,
Zero.
CEOs of a Fortune 500.
Wow.
At the time right now. So, you hear that stat and you think, okay, this is from the top down, right? And then I tried to kind of look for information on chief marketing officers, CMOs, CCOs, COOs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the data gets, kind of murky, but, we know what the answer is. It's not good.
It's not good. Right.
And so when you see that, you start to think, we know we have a diversity problem at the top and we know we have a female problem at the top. And sometimes those two get interconnected of like, oh, well, we fixed our diversity problem because we've got women at the top. But, more often than not, those women are white women.
Right.
And so, and then, when you see people of color at the top, they are men.
Right.
So again, there's a double stressor that we are fighting, certainly in corporate America, which was the, basis of my talk, but it is pervasive in all aspects of our society. And I think, again, when I heard that statement, it was like, oh, yes, it's this other third thing.
Right.
It's another stressor that you can't quite put your feeling on why when we talk about feminism and women's rights, it's not complete.
Exactly.
And when we talk about racism and, systemic injustice, it's not complete.
It's not complete.
Right. And so, it was a really something that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And so ever since I've heard about it, I've been preaching it to anyone who will listen.
You're in the seat that you can because you are in a very high level position for a brand that is, I just see the hands holding people, for Allstate. And it's like you are in a position of power to use your voice, which is really what this podcast is all about, using your voice for good.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for that and to know you that you're doing that. But I would imagine that as you lift women of all races, because when one woman rises, we all rise together.
Yep.
But how is your African American women group community helping you, and how are you helping your group of community, wherever that is, the community in your life, personally, professionally, get to a place where this gendered racism can really be talked about, just like Black Lives Matter or, Me Too or any kind of women equality.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it's what you just said, the gift in the wound. Is that what you said?
I did.
The gift in the wound. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to file that away and use it.
I think it's a Jesus thing, but whatever.
Great. I love Jesus things.
I do too. I love Jesus.
But the gift in the wound is that because gendered racism is this thing, so many people, we can invite people into that conversation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly women of color will really ring true and understand that. Black women in particular will understand, in terms of, not that there's certainly racism for all women of color on different levels,
Right.
Specifically with what's going on right now, and specifically because of the history of enslavement in this country, and really the issue of colorism, which is a whole nother thing,
Right.
Which is global.
Right.
Black women specifically will understand exactly what gendered racism means the
Right.
second that you say it.
Right.
But the gift is that women, white women, will hear the term. And I've actually gotten a lot of feedback from colleagues and friends who have said, wow, I never even...
Well, me, for one, I saw that and I was like, wait, what exactly is that? And let me explore that. And then you can tell people listening about the 3% conference, which is doing that exact thing to get that ratio up of women, women and women of color, and preaching the thing that I love the most, which is when you get a more diverse team put together, you can only achieve more. That is where the wins come.
Exactly. And this is what we've been preaching in years for, in advertising and in marketing, is that diversity equals profitability.
Exactly. It's good for business.
It's good for business.
Right.
It does not matter if you morally have an obligation or a desire to right this wrong, right? That is a very, true cause for a lot of people.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's green. There's profitability. And unfortunately, even hitting hard on that message has fallen short for a multitude of reasons. And then that's when you start to say, okay, if there's not one Black female CEO in the Fortune 500, something is going on.
Something's wrong.
If there are 4 Black men out of 500 people, something is going on.
Right.
If there are 38 women out of 500 people, something is going on. And so it's there's
do the math, right?
Do the math.
The math speaks
And the
for
math
itself.
is not going to lie. The math is not biased.
No.
The math is not...
The math is math.
It's math.
Which is why I don't like math, because I like when you can just sort of feel your way through things. But the math really here speaks for itself clearly.
It speaks volumes.
And as a Black woman who's in a very, big seat at Allstate, and you've always been in a really big seat because you're just so good at what you do. How are you in this moment where all of our eyes are on this racial injustice and people are doing their own internal work? I know for me, speak for myself, I'm just doing the internal work to help dismantle, because I can do everything outwardly, which I'll continue to do, but you really have to examine yourself, which I think is so true. So as you examine yourself and the people around you, how are you handling microaggressions? And can you talk a little bit more about that? I know it's really hard because you're actually not in the workplace. You're virtual. We all are. But those microaggressions happen when you're walking down the street, when you're on your Zoom. Constantly. And there are a lot of white people that don't understand what microaggressions are. Yeah. But it's almost like it's that extra stressor. It is that extra stressor. And it's not gender-based. It's all genders.
Well, and certainly, we encounter microaggressions as women.
Right.
Not just in the workplace, but everywhere.
Right, everywhere.
And certainly people of color, encounter microaggressions on the daily, and specifically Black women encounter microaggressions. And again, when you look through that lens of gendered racism, it's like, is this a sexism thing? Is it a racism thing? Is it
both?
Is it both? Is it neither? Right? And I think that's part of the stressor of a microaggression, is that you can't quite put your finger on it because it's not overtly racist or overtly sexist. It's, oh, did I just get bypassed in that conversation? And what was the reason behind it? Or did I get it, was there an assumption that was made? Or, did I just get a look at the grocery store? Why did I get a look? And so it just, it can become exhausting because it is so subtle. Now, I say that to also recognize it is 2020 and life has gotten infinitely better for, Black and brown people in this country, despite all of the horrors and the very real, very true injustices that, are happening right now. Right. And I think that's where it's just because it's subtle, it's easier to, instantly say, well, I'm not racist. Wait a minute. I don't want any of this to happen.
Of course. And that is speaking as a white person, where white people can do the work of dismantling that systemic stuff, because a white person can say something that, or do something, or give that look that you just, spoke of, and think nothing of it. They've never had to.
Right.
But when you start thinking, put it in the point of view of a person of color and how that person might feel, then you sort of start to understand it. And you really have to do the work internally to understand it. So I would say, if you're hearing the word microaggression and you don't know what that is, then that means you need to do some work so that you understand, so that you're not adding to the systemic racism that exists in our country.
Yeah. And oftentimes, we, as a Black woman, I'm so used to microaggressions that they literally kind of roll off of me.
Well, I want to ask you about that.
I should say, that's I should edit myself. I think they roll off of me, right? Okay. Because I'm conditioned to be desensitized to it,
right?
And to keep things moving, right, and to not internalize it,
right?
And I think that is also another psychological concept called the strong Black woman schema, and that is the basically protective persona that so many Black women, especially Black women who have succeeded in corporate America, who have kind of been able to, by, circumstance, certainly not, all of their own. I'm not saying that, I am like this Black woman superhero who was able to just like bypass. Well, we'll let those be your words, not mine.
Yeah.
But, the idea that, being this strong Black woman means being put together all the time.
Yeah.
Saying what you mean and meaning what you say, but not in a too bitchy way,
God forbid you be angry, right?
Cannot be angry.
Not allowed to be angry.
Not allowed to be angry. Allowed to, convey your thoughts, feelings, and ideas at the proper time and place. Make people feel comfortable with you, but also don't take any shit. You know what I mean? And so it's like that whole navigating.
That's a lot of stress. That's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
When's the last time you desensitized yourself to something? Can you give me an example? And if you can't, maybe you'll think about it and something will come later. But like something where you just allowed something to just roll off so that you could keep it moving and get your kid to school or get out the door or get to your call or whatever, because if you took the time to like battle every single one, you wouldn't get past the door.
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I can't even tell you, because the amount of, I'm so conditioned to just not let it bother me. I was camping a couple weekends ago in Michigan, taking my kids out to the lake, and I got a look, and it was a look from somebody who was at the lake, who was like an older, white man in his, 60s or 70s, and he gave me a look. And I don't know why he gave me the look, but he gave me the look, right? And so it's like, did you give me the look because I'm Black? Did you give me the look because I have a bikini on? Did you give me a look because my children, are of mixed race and look different than me?
Right.
Like, what was it? But I don't have time to decipher and
I'm
and
camping with
out.
My kids, so I'm going to let it roll.
I'm going to let it roll.
Yeah.
But it was a look. And even if as I'm calling back the story from a few weeks ago, I see his face.
Yeah.
And the look was not a look of welcoming. And it was not a look of, even kind of amusement or bewilderment. It was a look like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
when those add up, that can break a person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it is so normalized. And so every day of just, And this is what, Black people are talking about right now. Like, we just want to exist in this space.
Right.
And like, and I think, it is interesting because we certainly are at a point where we can all collectively acknowledge that we've been living with and agreeing to a system that is not working for us collectively, right? And I think, it's very important for people to hear that you can have individual beliefs that are against racism, that are against sexism, that are welcoming and inclusive. And you can still participate in and perpetuate a system that is repressive.
Exactly.
That is not, producing an inclusive
and I think that's
environment.
I think that's what's really making the shift now.
Yes.
Because you can say all you want and it's good. We should all speak it. We should all speak good stuff. I agree. But the actions are really the most important thing. And how is that really showing up in your life? Like, you just can't just speak something and not do something. And you don't have to go and change the world. You just have to change your home, your life, the way you operate first. And that's the work.
I agree. I did a vision board exercise at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I'm a woo-woo spiritual person. We did 10 years at the Oprah. I was, a decade at the Oprah show. Yeah. I love and live and believe in, everything that we put out every day.
Right.
And shout out to my Powerful Lady retreat group, because we went and did a little 24-hour retreat right before COVID hit. Oh. We did vision boards. Literally, this was like a week before everything shut down.
Who is this group?
Okay.
Is this through just you made it your group? Or you tell us.
Yeah, we made it a group. We kind of had unofficially become friends through varying circumstances, actually through two of the women's husbands, a network of just powerful women who are in, powerful positions in advertising, in public relations, in legal. And, we started kind of on this like group text chain, and some of us would get together for coffee and this and this and that. And my dear friend Amanda said, we all need a timeout on our lives and we want to come together. And we went up to Geneva.
Right.
Literally, it was a 36-hour trip. Wow. But we
so worth it.
Spot and we vision boarded and we had a good dinner and we talked about dreams and and we've been able to maintain that even in COVID, just thanks to like social distancing and being outside and that kind of stuff. But
once you spend 36 hours with a group of people, you don't need much more than that. And you just get right to it. And then you can still keep that going. And that's the most important thing, is just to keep those connections going while we're going through this COVID time, because this is not going away. We are going to need to understand that we are going to be on screen time for a long time and social distance for a long time. And winter's coming, and that's going to be scary.
Winter is coming.
Yes.
The night walkers are coming.
The night walkers. But I love that you formed that group, because that is sustaining you, I'm assuming.
Oh my gosh, yes. It honestly was such a gift to have really formalized the four of us together.
Do you have a name for it?
We don't. We call ourselves, we had the Powerful Lady Relaxation Summit. Okay. So that's kind of the Power Lady group. Yep. And but on my vision board, this is my point. Yeah. I put something at the base, which said the ripple effect. Mm-hmm. And, I said in early 2020, at the beginning of the year, I said, this is going to be the year that I focus on one-to-one relationships. Oh, that's nice. And I focus on that ripple, knowing that if I can impact one person through one conversation, that person will go on and affect change. And I think sometimes with everything that's going on right now, it feels enormous.
It feels really big.
And especially if you're someone who is, a producer. Right. Who likes to fix things. Right. Who likes to
figure out things.
Figure it out. Everything is figure outable.
Exactly.
Like how do you, these are the puzzle pieces we have. What are we making?
Yeah. I know how your brain operates.
Yeah, of course you do. Because you share that.
I signed up for volunteer to make calls for Joe Biden. And I just thought, well, if I can do anything, I can talk, right? That's my jam. And I did the training for how to do the calling. And I'm just like, I'm over my head. I got to be in Slack. I got to be in this. I got to be on Chrome. I got to be blah, 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 blah. The DEM dialer. And I fell apart. I did it, but I didn't understand what I was doing. And I fell apart. And I was like, I want to cry. I had to go out for a walk because I just felt like, why can't I figure this out? I can't do anything. So the point of the whole reason why I'm telling the story is because sometimes you feel things are too big. They're too big. And it's like, I want to fix everything. But what I realized when I came back home is exactly what you said. If I can just fix one person, and I know this, but if I can just fix one, if my message can land on someone's heart, just one, I've done my job.
Yes.
And so there's nothing that's going to stop me from that. Not a DEM dialer, not Slack, not technology. I'm going to go back. I'm doing training again this week. I'm going to try it again. But like, I just feel that we all need to realize we are not going to solve world peace overnight, but just have world peace for the people that you can affect. And that's enough right now.
Yeah. And I think, my friend in India, I have a lot of friends in India because I worked, prior to joining Allstate, I spent 5 years at Epsilon Agency and we were global. Right. So we had a large office in India that I was there frequently, and I've made some very, very dear friends. But my friend there, who's a bit of a guru type, very spiritually attuned, told me, the world is not yours to fix.
Yeah.
It is not yours to fix.
Yeah. We want to fix it.
We want to fix it, and we will collectively, we will move towards a better future. We will. We have to.
We will.
There's no choice.
Yeah,
we have
there's
to.
No choice.
But the weight of the world is not on you to fix. Okay. And, Biden's election is not going to live or die off of your ability to do a Slack.
Off of my Slack and DEM dialer.
Not to say we should be just sitting idly by.
No, we shouldn't.
But we should be putting the mask on ourselves.
Yep.
Getting the energy.
Yep.
And figuring out where best to direct that energy once we've stored it for ourselves.
Exactly. And that's the internal work.
And then as you move and evolve yourself, you will bring others with you.
Yes. And I would imagine that with bringing it back to gendered racism, that is the work that you and all of us need to be doing, because if you can affect change within your own circle of influence and your own company, that all of a sudden maybe, you'll see that change. Maybe, you're already in a very high position there. Who knows what could happen years from now? You could be the statistic. You could be you could get there, but and because of the work that you're doing, you could be that number one, yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I have talked about this a lot too, is that if we go back to our Oprah experience, working for the Oprah show, first of all, dream job at 22. Hello. Yeah. What do you do with that?
Yeah. It's unfortunate. We were so spoiled. It's like nothing's the same ever.
I know. And then not only was it my dream job, it was a very female and a very black and brown environment to work in.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we realized collectively at the time what that meant. I had no idea what it meant to have a female boss and a female boss's boss.
Right.
At 22. That is something I've heard from women in advertising and marketing, that they've never had a female boss.
Well, I think that if you want to get real woo-woo about it, and I just really believe that we were all drawn to her. And I believe, and she says that, I really believe it. I know I was. I know you were. And I think that that is our nature. To support women, races, sexual preferences, all of it, genders, all of it. And I think that's why we landed there. And I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's on purpose.
Oh my gosh, there are no mistakes.
Right. And I think that the person that wouldn't be attracted to that wouldn't even be drawn to it. You know what I'm saying? And so, but yes, we were very, very, very lucky. And yet at the same time, I think we all deserved to be there for the very reason that we exist and were pulled to be there.
Well, and I'll toss back to you an Oprah quote, which is luck is preparation meeting opportunity.
There you go.
Right? And so certainly, I mean, there were thousands of people who wanted to work at Harpo. So yes, there is a degree of luck and circumstance and chance that brought each one of us.
Yes, but I think it's so much bigger than your resume.
But oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a tribe. We were on vacations together.
Yeah. We saw each other in bikinis. Well, not me.
We saw each other in a lot. Like there were, I mean, I had clothes at my desk. Like we were living there.
Yeah. I mean, I used to ask people to pee for me. I'm like, could you pee for me? Because I don't have time.
Oh my God.
I will say, anyone listening, that you were the person that when we sat at that table, I've told you this story a million times, when I said, I think we should all be meditating. And you shot me your big smile, like megawatt smile. It's just your brand and makes people feel so good. And I was like, thank you, Jill, because everyone else thought I was crazy except for Nirvana.
Yes.
And then, of course, later we did meditate and we learned and we were trained. It was the greatest gift that we were ever given.
The greatest gift.
But yeah, we all, we were such a unique family, and that family never goes away because that magic lives on forever.
Yeah.
We don't have to be in the building. That's why we're sitting across from each other today, because you don't just forget those relationships.
No,
ever.
you don't. And nor do you forget the ability to create magic for people, right? And I think
we were taught that.
We were taught that. It was like a PhD in creating magic and experiences.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that, you know, just the reality of that being the grounding for where I spent my first really essential, it was like, you know, my second job out of college.
Yeah.
But to spend 10 years there and then to enter into, you know, what is more traditional corporate America, advertising, marketing.
God bless you. I couldn't survive. I wouldn't be able to do it.
But let me tell you, I was able to survive because of the training ground that I had at Harpo. Because it was like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about.
Right.
Oh, this is very different.
Right.
And not to, you know, there were lots of unique issues that we came across at Harpo that, you know, have nothing to do with corporate America.
At all.
But the idea that I had a voice and I had agency and that I had power and that my opinion mattered was not something that I ever had to fight against going into corporate America, because I had already, you know, I had seen examples of women using their voice.
Right.
Hello, Oprah was the boss.
Right.
So like that was the whole thing.
And
like,
all the female bosses
her entire
under her.
brand was on her being herself.
Exactly.
And your success at Harpo was about your ability to kind of channel Oprah's brand, which was her. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, I feel really fortunate, and I understand, though, I think I have an added perspective of how difficult it might be for someone, a Black woman, a person of color, a woman of color, a woman starting out in a white male-dominated industry, which is all of the industries. And so, you know, I'm glad that I have that perspective, and I do think it has helped me. And I certainly feel like, you know, when you break the glass ceiling or you make a milestone, you leave the hole big enough.
Right.
To bring two people with you, you know.
Pull up.
So that's, you know.
So here's my big question.
What we're going to do.
Here's my big question. Breaking that ceiling and the hole pulling up. How do you speak to your daughter, Clarke? Currently.
Sweet, sweet Clarke.
Yeah.
How do I speak to her?
Is she 6?
Yes, she's 6.
I know she rocks her future president T-shirts. I see that on the gram.
It's her favorite shirt. She loves it. I love it. It may have been, you know.
So cute.
And I think that's a passed down shirt from Jessica Hernandez.
Oh,
another
Jess,
awesome mom who is raising fearless daughters.
Yes.
Oh gosh, Clarke and I talk all the time. Talk about what? Like talk about.
I just mean specifically. Like, how do you talk to her about being a female of mixed race and seeing that now with our vice presidential nominee, and how has that changed the conversation in your household?
Oh, I have such pride for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
You know, politics aside, the fact that there is a Black woman on a ticket is
pretty awesome.
Huge. You know, now personally,
listen, I'm just
love
excited
her,
that
and
her husband's Jewish.
I'm
like, yes,
they are the cutest.
Yes.
And I love that she calls herself Mamala.
Oh, Mamala. How cute could you be? First of all, her whole family, her sister, her nieces, they're like ridiculous. And her stepchildren.
Yes.
Oh, so cute.
And I've been an early Kamala, like, super fan since the primaries. So, thrilled about that and what it could potentially mean, for the future.
Yeah,
I'm glad. I'm, could go on and on.
Right.
But, when everything was going on, I mean, we've always talked about race, since the kids could listen, and of course you start with the, people look different and
sorry, okay? My knee and I almost just tipped over your liquid death water
all the way 8 feet apart, 8 feet away.
Yes, an ocean away. Sorry.
No problem. So, we've always talked about race, and we've talked about, fortunately she has a beautiful cornucopia of people that she is able to interact with, who love her, of all genders, of all races, of all sexual preferences, etc. But when everything was going on, I was really trying to figure out, okay, what is age appropriate for me to share with her?
She's 6.
She is 6, and I have a son who's 4.
Right.
And the primary conversation that we ended up having and we continue to have, it certainly is about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And why that statement is powerful and why that statement is useful and why that statement is needed. The best way, and I was talking to her about this before Black Lives Matter, but the best way that I could describe, when we would read a history book about, someone Black and, they're talking about, little hints of, the civil rights movement or systemic.
But not the story.
Yeah. Wilma Rudolph had to sit in the back of the bus. And it's like, why are all these people, and I remember, speaking a lot about systemic racism early and saying, it was illegal.
Right.
Like Rosa Parks did not, go to jail because she sat in a white man's seat. Right. She went to jail because it was illegal for her to sit in that seat.
Right.
And I think that's an important distinction because it's not like, and who knows what that particular white person on the bus was doing or saying or not doing or saying.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is it was the law.
It was the law.
And the law was racist and the law was discriminatory. And I think, again, to just tie it back to what's going on today and what I said earlier, you can be a well-meaning, inclusive, non-racist person, quote, in quotes. I'm doing quotes, but we're on a podcast, so you can't see.
I see your quotes, air quotes.
And still, contribute to a system that is discriminatory.
And that is the key takeaway today. Anyone listening, that is the key takeaway. And that is what I'm working on. That is what my family's working on. Everybody that I love, I have a family text thread of all my nieces and my mom and my sisters. And we're constantly educating ourselves. My niece, one of my nieces is married to a Black man. She will have mixed race children. Yeah. We couldn't be more inclusive and excited, but we want to do it it's all about love. But we want to really learn and understand what it is as white people who we're all welcoming people, but what can we do that's more that will change?
Yes. And I will say 2 things because I was talking to my friend Jessa about this. It's like I lived in LA for a little bit. Okay. So I went to college in Los Angeles. I went to Pepperdine. Shout out to Malibu.
Yay.
Perfect place.
Why did you leave?
I don't know. I do not know.
You're crazy.
Other than I was broke and I needed to go home and take myself back to Chicago.
What was your first job, by the way?
My first job.
LA?
So in LA, I majored in broadcast journalism. So I graduated with a broadcast journalism degree. So while I was in college, I worked on basically the student news channel, which was the Malibu local news, reporting on like rising gas prices and the chili cook-off, basically. And so I graduated with that degree, but all the while I was doing internships in LA. So I interned at MTV. Oh, cool. I did a mentorship at Fox in programming, and was just really trying to explore and get into this whole creative production world. I moved back to Chicago after
when you got the Oprah
graduation. Well, I did do a 1 year at Fiegel Public Relations, which was a small public relations firm that was owned by my friend Catherine's uncle. Funny side note, I was on The Price is Right my senior year of college, and I won a Lord of the Rings pinball machine, which basically funded my summer after college because I sold it.
Because who needs a Lord of the Rings pinball machine?
Somebody did, and he paid $5,000 cash for it, and I was like, I'm rich. I'm rich.
Gosh.
You know, I'm from Homewood Flossmoor, so I was at the Fifth Quarter, which is a bar, a local townie bar, like buying drinks for people. Like, don't worry, Price is Right money, I've got it. And then come like October, it was like, all that money's gone. And I'm living with my parents. This is not a good look.
Right.
So anyway, I worked for a year at a public relations firm as an account executive, and I was able to kind of carve out a really nice position doing media training for clients, booking them on local news, local TV shows and radio shows and that kind of stuff. And it was a great experience. It was definitely my first dip into, it's certainly not corporate America, but maybe small business America.
Yeah. And then Oprah came.
And then Oprah came, which I had been knocking on the door every couple months to no avail. Finally got...
How did the door open?
The door opened through a monster.com.
Oh, that never happens.
Remember monster.com?
But that never happened.
Well, and because it was a job for a senior supervising producer. And so huge job post. It's basically, that's the title that I left Harpo with 10 years later.
Exactly.
But at the end of the monster.com, there was a Yahoo email, and it was Susan. What was her name? Susan in HR.
Susan,
I can't think of her last name.
I can only think of Connie and Michelle. And
I know.
Maren.
No, she left kind of like maybe 07 or 08, blonde hair. Anyway, it was like Susan Harpo at Yahoo. It was a real email. I was like, they're filtering these because they're looking for someone quickly. It's like right before the season was starting. Or the season had maybe just started because it was like September or so. So I emailed her and I said, not qualified for this job, but if you've got anything else open, let me know.
That's so smart.
And she called me the next day and she was like, we've got a job opening for a PA in promos. I was like, great. What's promos?
Yeah, done.
Sign me up.
And you're so good at it. And I will say that one of the things, it's so hard to get jobs anytime without knowing someone, which is just so hard and difficult. And even when, you're so qualified and you still can't get someone to answer your email. But one of the things that I did for hiring there was because we always needed someone now. So who's got time to even look through all the mounds of resumes that we received? So we would go through a temp agency and they'd send someone over. And then if that person was great, then I ended up hiring them, which is just a great way. I know the world is a little different right now, but when the world gets back, if anyone's struggling for a career that they want, go to a temp agency that literally books you on if you like production or if you like accounting, whatever it is that you like. But it was a great way. But you were so smart to find that email.
Well, and it was smart. So, and
because everything's figure-outable.
Everything's figure-outable. Well, and to your point, and like I said, I had started applying at Harpo when I was still in college. Just, every couple of months I'd send my resume, nothing. Send my resume, nothing. But if I backtrack to like my intern days at MTV, I got the internship through a woman, Julia, who had gone to Pepperdine and was working there, was probably like 24 or 25, but was, involved in the, Pepperdine network or whatever. And then while I was there was a woman named Bethany who I worked with who had a friend who was Kim Fonte, who worked at Harpo. So then when I got the interview, I told Bethany, hey, don't you know somebody at Harpo?
Right.
And Kim, God bless her soul, like didn't know me from Adam and walked by my interview just to pop in and say, hey, so Jill, nice to see you. And made sure that HR saw that she was like waving Kim. Me. And it was just like, that's just a little something. But that could have been the door opener.
It could have been the clincher. You never know.
So shout out Kim.
Shout out Kim Fonte. Is there a woman that you'd like to give a shout out to who really pulled you up the most at Harpo? Anyone?
Oh, man.
I know there's so many.
How much time do we have?
I know.
I mean, I need to shout out all my promo ladies.
I know.
I got to shout out. I already talked about Jess.
I know.
Shout out to Jess. I mean, I learned so much from each one of the women that I worked with. First of all, we kind of grew up together, you know, and I remember like, you know, when I started as a PA, you know, we had, you know, Sheila McNaughton and Erica Woolreich and Alicia Bailey. Aww. And, oh gosh, now I'm hoping I'm not forgetting people.
It's your
We're
Oscar
kind of
speech.
like just right, you know, in that zone right ahead of me were maybe like APs.
Yeah.
And then them just pulling me in and saying like, hey, this is how it works. And here's the do's and the don'ts, you know. And I remember Erica telling me, you know, if you can be proactive and anticipate what people are going to ask, you will go far here, you know.
Think about what that little bit of information gives you in the seat you're in today. Like, that's huge.
God, yeah. It's huge. And
Erica's
I think
so sweet.
Yeah. And, you know, and then I think, you know, if I fast forward to today, like, you know, Alicia and Jess and I are really close friends and supporters of each other,
right?
You know, and we think about just, it was hard. Working at Harpo was hard, you know, navigating a lot of demand and a lot of personality and, you know, having your core people, you know, beyond the work stuff was so important, you know. And then I have to shout out Meg and I have to shout out Liz for just teaching me how to write.
Liz
Kozak and
Liz
Meg Mitchell.
Kozak.
I mean, probably
Meg,
like two of, you know, the best writers
Meg
that I know.
is at United now?
Yeah, Meg's at United
and
now. And
Liz just wrote a book.
Wrote a book for Second City, produces
She's
for Second City, put out like their, you know, sitcom, variety show.
And this is the point.
It.
Like, the people that came in that door were blessed with magic because they brought magic. So it's like when a talented group of people come together and they have one specific, you know, purpose, and that purpose is led by someone. The leader of the group has embodied that purpose. That's when magic happens. That's the Oprah Winfrey Show. That could happen anywhere, at any company, at any family.
Yes.
And all of the people that were working in that building creating magic are creating magic outside that building now. And it's so cool. And it makes me so happy every time I see all of our family members just soaring.
I agree.
It's cool.
Almost like we're like spreading our Harpo magic across.
We're like
everywhere.
disciples. We're like little, like,
for sure.
And
I
spreaders.
think it's a good point. You know, I think we often think that we have to have this big Oprah show, 14 million viewers a day influence.
No.
And we can go
matter.
a mile deep and an inch wide.
Yep.
And that's how you change a person. So, and we, you know, we had the unique an awesome ability to be able to go really deep on the Oprah show.
And really
also
wide.
really wide.
I like to say that it doesn't matter the size of your audience. It matters that they've gathered to listen to you. And so it doesn't matter if 2 people are listening or 2 million people are listening, as long as you're spreading the word. And that's the ripple effect that you started talking about, right? And so you're doing it within the community of your group of women that you've chosen to be with, your 4 women, retreat women, power women.
Yep, my power ladies.
And your work community, I'm sure, your children, your daughter, your family, and your friends. So we find support and we use that to lift ourselves and lift others. So I think that's probably the best way to continue the work that you're doing and that we're all doing.
Absolutely. And it is. I mean, this battle, and we are in a bit of a battle. You know, I think we're at kind of an event horizon where people are waking up. And I think, you know, it's funny because the whole term of like being woke, you know, came around a couple of years ago, but it's like, oh no, now you like fell out of bed and the alarm hit you when you hit the nightstand and like you're awake.
You're seriously awake.
This is what I was going to say. Gosh, I keep forgetting.
We forgot about Jessa.
I know. This is where I just got back to that.
God.
Okay, so I lived in LA.
Yes.
And I liken it to realizing when you live in LA, you don't think about the weather.
Right.
You literally, you do not check the weather.
I get it.
You assume that it's going to be 75 and sunny.
I totally get it.
And then you have the nerve to be pissed off when it's raining.
Right.
You're like, what is this?
Or when it's 68.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't preemptively pack a jacket or an umbrella.
Yes.
It's LA and it's sunny and 72.
It's a privilege.
And when you're from Chicago, you know that you have to check the weather hourly, daily. You have to be prepared for rain.
Yeah.
It could snow today. I
It's
need my
a
jacket.
battle.
It's a battle. And this is what racism is to Black people in this country. We live in Chicago. The weather is constantly changing on us. So we need to check every day with every room that we walk in. What's the situation? Do I feel safe? Can I share? Can I not share? You know, is this a place I want to be? Is this a place I even want to go? I'm having thoughts about that before I get there. Do I need to bring my rain boots or not? And I think what has happened is that, you know, when you live in LA and it rains and, you know, George Floyd gets murdered, it's like, oh my God, I'm appalled. I can't believe that this is happening. And people who have been awoken to, you know, by necessity, the realization that this is America in 2020 is like, grab your umbrella. Because it's getting real rough out here. So I think, you know, that's, it's a bit of a silly analogy, but
what really fell on my heart as you were saying it was the idea that people who live in good weather never have to think about it. Like for me, as a white mom, I don't have to think about my son getting pulled over by a police officer and having the talk with him. I have the talk with him to be a good human for his health and his safety, but I don't have to have that talk with him. And so that's an extra burden on a Black mom. And so when you equate it to weather, I think that really wakes people up to say, oh, I get it. So if I live in LA, it's just a privilege. It's just a known fact. I'm never going to have to pack a raincoat or put a ice windshield wiper thing in my car. I never have to do that. Just like white people never have to worry about, am I safe in this environment?
Right.
Men or women.
Exactly. And I think it starts with the awareness, right? And then it's like, you know, there's varying degrees of like, did you move to LA to get away from the weather? Or were you born in LA and it's just never been something you've considered, you know?
Interesting.
And so
we're getting deep. I like that.
Let's go.
I like that. Let's go. I like that. That's a very, very strong takeaway, a very strong image. I'm a visual learner. So I really get that and I understand that. And I hope that anyone listening is like, ooh, feeling those goosebump moments of like, I understand that. And it's also a really wonderful way to describe it to someone who doesn't understand it. And it really will wake people up, literally. I like that a lot.
And then it's like, once you have so much of, and again, to get Oprah-y, awareness is everything, right? Because once you see something, you can't unsee it. So then it's, what are you going to do about it?
Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better.
When you know better, you do better.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you would consider rating it 5 stars. You notice that there aren't commercials, right? That's because I don't have a sponsor. Not yet, anyway. So listen to the Love Speaks series commercial-free and rate it 5 stars. Send it to your friends. Share it. Spread the love. And thank you for listening. Talk to me about Quaker Oats retiring the Aunt Jemima brand.
Oh, boy. Talk about an overdue thing to do.
And to read about it, like, it's like the history of it is so interesting. Do you know it? Can you speak on it?
I mean, and speaking without having like specific, facts and everything in front of me, for everybody who doesn't know what Aunt Jemima pancake syrup is and the pancake mix brand, it was a brand that long-standing, my gosh, I don't know, even
from like the 1800s.
From
like
the 1800s.
Right.
And, they finally in 2020 said, we're going to rebrand or, to retire this brand.
Right.
And certainly over the years, Aunt Jemima has they removed
the kerchief and they,
Exactly. But, the origins and the beginning of Aunt Jemima's pancake mix was like basically a freed house slave.
Correct.
In Aunt Jemima, who just loves to make the pancakes.
Right.
I love making pancakes for all these white people.
Right.
And don't they taste good? And yes, like Aunt Jemima knows how to make pancakes.
Right.
And it's like, there was a lot of controversy or talk about, there was a Black woman who played the role of Aunt Jemima very early on. And it was kind of like, this is a huge deal for her and her family. She's being portrayed in the media, not in blackface and not in a demeaning way, in quotes. Again, I'm in quotes because she's still the house slave. She's still the housework, the help.
There was also something I read where it was more on radio, but maybe it wasn't radio because the woman was in blackface. She was white playing the role, which is like, and that's a separate, and maybe that was earlier on.
And I think that was earlier, and then they decided to, cast a Black actor, which was a big deal at that time.
Right.
And I think, again, it's like we have to hold space for both of those things where, like, it could be a big deal and a step forward, but then also still racist, and still perpetuating the system and the stereotype. So Chadwick Bozeman, who just passed. I was just seeing a clip of him giving a graduation commencement speech at Howard. And he was talking about one of the first roles that he booked, which looked to be like on like a soap opera or something. But he was playing the role of the criminal. And he said, I had issue with that because this role was stereotypical, and it was, and he has this beautiful story, I'll send it to you, of him, going back to the execs and saying, I just have a few questions about my character development. Like, where's my mother? Where's my father? And he started pushing back, and he lost the job because they said he was difficult to work with. And he's like, did I do the right thing?
Yes, he did.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
And, but he also took the role because that was the role that was available, and it's like, gosh, and when you talk about microaggressions and when you talk about like just navigating, if there's a seat at the table, you take it. And that's like Cindy Gallup, 3%. Get in the room. If you're the only female in the room, get in the room.
Get in the room and then do your magic.
Then do your magic. But don't worry too much about how you're getting in the room or why you're getting in the room.
But how that must feel as a person in any role. It does as a Black person of color in any role where you have to bite the freaking bullet and you have to just go, okay, this is totally against everything I stand for, but I'm in the room and I'm going to make it work because I'm going to make my way. Right. It's a horrible, terrible feeling. I mean, any person can feel that way because, the moral code is you could be a white person and asked to do things that you are morally against as well. So, absolutely. But again, added. It's LA. It's just added. It's added weather. It's added weather. It's added weather. But seriously, are you happy that? I mean, as a brand person, and you're this is what you do. What you know. Was this a big deal when you heard this about the brand? I mean, the Aunt Jemima brand is a microaggression. Huge. It's total. Walking. That is a microaggression. I'm in the grocery store looking for pancake mix. And I have to see Aunt Jemima. And I don't buy Aunt Jemima. I've never bought Aunt Jemima for that reason. Because I go to the log cabin because that feels a little more a little neutral. Yeah. But it's a microaggression. So it's just one example of a daily reminder, and not that we should be forgetting history or revising history. No, but certainly a corporation should not be profiting off of an image that perpetrates systemic racism. Exactly. So I thought, how does being a Black woman speak to you? Oh, it speaks to me every day. It's who I am. It's the core and the essence. And I growing up in a, predominantly white suburb of Chicago, Homewood Flossmoor, which was, what I thought was diverse at the time. Right. Kind of. But, even taking a step back, I remember specifically like being a child growing up in South Shore, which was much more Black and brown, and then moving when I was in second grade to Homewood Flossmoor, where I think I was the only Black kid in class, or maybe there was one other one. But that was kind of the realization of like, I'm different than all of these people, and this is a different kind of social code and system that we've now moved into. And growing up, I'm fortunate to have had really great
kind of sister relationships with women of all races, less, so then in my adult years, in my 20s, where I've, have found a community of like women of color. But, I always thought growing up, those microaggressions and those issues that I would encounter were a result of my blackness. And I think, I know that in my wise old age, in my 30s, realizing that it's the whiteness that is the problem, this ideal and this lie. And that's how, to turn her back around and talking to Clarke about like, well, there was this lie that whiteness is superiority, and it infiltrated every little crack and crevice for hundreds of years. There is a great book by
a virus.
There's a great book by Tom Burrell, who started Burrell Communications, which is one of the largest African-American advertising agencies. And his book is called Brainwashed. And he talks about how the myth of Black inferiority was a very purposeful, very targeted propaganda campaign that lasted for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Where
wake up to that.
The messaging and just the, we know. And then for me, coming from promos on the Oprah show, my job was to get people to watch the show. My job was not to tell you what the show was about. My job was to get you there. So that's advertising. That's persuasion. That's what we do now. Now, of course, you have to have the meat to back it up. But it is
the power of
powerful.
The power of tuning people into whatever it is that you want. Now, for you're doing good, wonderful things. But for what you just explained, and this is the truth, this has been going on for hundreds of years, and it was purposeful.
Yes. And it's the only way that people who were, fleeing, seeking independence, we've all seen Hamilton, or hopefully you've seen Hamilton, and, we're, fighting for this, like, the rights and, away from persecution and all this stuff. How can you hold space for that and then also enslave people? The only way you can do it is to perpetrate and believe a myth that those people are not people, that they're inferior, that they're three-fifths of a human.
The desensitizing.
The desensitizing of it. And it's the same thing. Again, it's on a more subtle zone. But when you see kids in cages at a border and you say, I have to do something today and I've got a lot of other things going on and I can't hold space for that, that is your ability to be in LA and be not worried about the weather.
Thank you. I think we'll end right there. That's beautiful. I have 50 more questions for you, but that was the most beautiful way to end this beautiful conversation that I'm so grateful to have with you, my friend Jill Frank. Your love is speaking. I should have asked you that at the top. That's my question, but your love has spoke. Your love has spoken.
I love it.
And I'm grateful, and thank you, and more conversations ahead. And if anyone's interested in having a conversation with themselves, please do that and then have it with others. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sally Lou. And thank you for being your ripple, because you're making a difference too. So, I'm happy to be here.
And
it's good to see you.
It's
just
so
good to see you. Physically see you.
Thank you.
You look great.
You do too. Thank you. Bye. I have loved speaking with you today, and I want to speak with you more. So follow me on all of my social platforms at Live Love Speaks on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you want more stories like the stories we speak here on the Love Speaks series podcast, go to lovespeaks.com and pick up a copy of my new book, Speak. Love your story, your audience is waiting. To step up your speaking game and your human game. Check out my blog while you're there.
Sally Lou Loveman is a mom, speaker, author, former audience producer for The Oprah Winfrey Show, and founder of Love Speaks. Each week, Sally Lou and her crew have a conversation about how love speaks in their lives and how it can speak in yours. From kindness to composting, no topic is off limits. If you need a community to kickstart your heart, you need the Love Speaks series.
Thanks for listening. Your Love Speaks.